The contract sat on his desk like a slap to my face. 20%. That's how much Vaughn wanted to cut my salary. I stared at the number, my vision blurring with disbelief. It's temporary, he said, not even looking up from his phone. Company-wide adjustments. I'd just finished the Riverside shopping complex 3 weeks ahead of schedule. Under budget, 0 safety incidents. The board had sent me a personal thank you email, and now this. When does it go back to normal? I asked, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. He shrugged. When the market improves, signed by Friday. I walked out of his office feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. My hands were shaking. 20% wasn't just money, it was my mother's medication, my mortgage payment, my dignity. The worst part, everyone would know. In an office of 12 people, salary cuts don't stay secret. That night I sat at my kitchen table staring at the contract. I had 2 choices, sign it and survive or refuse it and starve. Vaughn knew I was trapped, he was counting on it. I signed it the next morning, but something inside me had shifted. I wasn't defeated, I was awake. The office felt different after that. Every conversation, every email, every meeting, I saw it all through new eyes. Vaughn walked around like nothing had happened, laughing with the sales team, bragging about his weekend plans. He'd just leased a Mercedes GLE, metallic blue, $70,000. Treating myself, he told everyone at lunch, been a good quarter. I sat there, fork frozen halfway to my mouth, watching him grin. A good quarter. My salary cut had paid for his down payment. The math was that simple, that ugly. Nobody said anything. They just nodded and smiled, the way people do when they're scared. That afternoon, I went back to my desk and opened the company's financial dashboard. As project coordinator, I had access to budget reports, profit margins, contractor payments. We weren't struggling. We were thriving. Revenue up 18% from last year. 3 new contracts signed this month alone. He'd lied to my face. I closed the laptop slowly, my heart pounding. This wasn't about the market. This wasn't temporary. Vaughn was simply taking what he wanted because he could, and I'd let him. But I wasn't going to anymore. I started paying attention, really paying attention, not just to my own work but to everything happening around me, the way Vaughn spoke to contractors, the way he rushed through safety briefings, the way he'd snap at anyone who questioned his decisions. Our current project was a residential complex, 42 townhomes in a new development called Meadowbrook Estates. It was supposed to be our crown jewel, luxury finishes, premium location. Families were already putting down deposits. But something felt off. I'd noticed it weeks ago. The drainage system wasn't installed to spec. The engineering plans called for 6-inch perforated pipe with gravel bedding. What we'd actually installed was 4-inch solid pipe with minimal gradding. It wouldn't handle heavy rain. It wouldn't handle anything. I'd mentioned it to Vaughn. Inspections signed off on it, he'd said, waving me away. Don't overthink it. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Those weren't just houses. They were homes, families, kids playing in backyards that would flood the first time a storm hit. I pulled up the inspection reports that night, signed and approved, every single one, but I'd been on site the day of that inspection. The inspector had barely looked, 10 minutes, in and out. Something was very, very wrong. I started digging deeper. Late nights at the office, doors closed, screen brightness turned down. I told myself I was just being thorough, just doing my job, but really I was looking for proof. And I found it. The original drainage plans submitted to the city showed the correct 6-inch system, but the internal work orders, the ones sent to our contractors, specified 4-inch. Someone had changed them. The approval stamps were real, but the specs had been altered after the fact. I checked the budget line items. The 6-inch system would have cost $42,000. The 4-inch system cost $18,000. Savings, $24,000. Vaughn's car lease, $24,000 down payment. My stomach turned. This wasn't just corner cutting. This was fraud. And if those homes flooded, if someone got hurt, if foundations cracked or basements filled, people would sue. The company would be liable, but Vaughn didn't care. He'd probably be gone by then, golden parachute in hand. I sat in the dark office, the only light coming from my monitor. I should report this, call the city, call someone. But Vaughn had power, connections, a lawyer on retainer. What did I have? A 20% pay cut and a target on my back. I closed the files, but I didn't delete them. I copied everything to a USB drive and slipped it into my pocket. Just in case. The next morning I tried, I really did. I walked into Vaughn's office with my laptop, ready to show him everything, ready to give him one chance to fix it. We need to talk about Meadowbrook, I said. He didn't even look up, it's fine. The drainage isn't to code, if we don't fix it now. It passed inspection, his voice was sharp, final. But the specs were changed. He looked up then and his eyes were cold. Are you questioning my judgment? I hesitated. That hesitation told him everything. Because if you are, he continued, leaning back in his chair, I should remind you that you're on thin ice already. Budget cuts aren't the only adjustments I can make. Plenty of project coordinators out there who'd love your job, even at reduced pay. The threat hung in the air between us, clear, ugly, effective. I'm just trying to protect the company, I said quietly. Then do your job and stop creating problems. He turned back to his computer. Close the door on your way out. I left his office with my heart hammering. He hadn't just dismissed my concerns, he'd threatened me. And suddenly I understood. Reporting this through proper channels would destroy me, not him. I needed a different plan. That weekend, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those families, signing contracts, dreaming about their new homes. They had no idea what they were buying. No idea that the first heavy rain would turn their backyards into swamps. I thought about walking away, finding a new job, letting someone else deal with it. But I couldn't. This wasn't just about me anymore. Monday morning, I started building a case. Not for Vaughn, for whoever would eventually hold him accountable. I documented everything. Photos of the drainage installation, copies of the altered work orders, budget discrepancies, email chains where Vaughn had overruled safety concerns. I created a folder on my personal laptop, named it Meadowbrook Documentation. Every night I'd add something new, a photo, a report, a conversation I'd recorded on my phone. I wasn't planning revenge, not yet, I was just collecting truth. But then I remembered something. 2 months ago, our senior civil engineer, Marcus Ortega, had quit suddenly. No notice, no goodbye, just gone. At the time, Vaughn had called him unreliable and difficult to work with. But what if that wasn't the whole story? I found Marcus on LinkedIn that night. He was working for a competitor now, seemed happy. I stared at his profile for 20 minutes before I finally worked up the courage. I sent him a message. Hey Marcus, hope you're doing well. Quick question about Meadowbrook if you have a minute. He responded in 10 minutes. Call me, now. Marcus answered on the first ring. You're still working on Meadowbrook. His voice was tense. Yeah, why? He was quiet for a moment. Then, get out, seriously. That project is a lawsuit waiting to happen. My pulse quickened, the drainage system. So you noticed? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I tried to stop it, wrote 3 separate reports explaining why the design changes were dangerous. Vaughn buried every single one. Why didn't you report him? I tried, went to the project owner, the board, even threatened to contact the city. Know what Vaughn did? Showed me a non-compete clause in my contract. Said if I caused problems, he'd sue me into oblivion and make sure I never worked in this state again. I felt sick, so you just left. What choice did I have? I documented everything, sent copies to my personal email and walked away. I've got a family, couldn't risk it. He paused. But I kept all those files, every report, every email, every warning I gave, just in case someone ever needed them. My heart was racing now. Marcus, would you be willing to share those files? Another pause, longer this time. Why? What are you planning? I didn't have an answer yet, not a full one, but I knew one thing. I'm planning to make sure the truth doesn't stay buried. Send me your personal email, Marcus said, and be careful, Vaughn doesn't fight fair. The files arrived at 2 a.m. I was still awake, staring at my ceiling when my phone buzzed. Marcus had sent everything, a compressed folder containing 3 years of documentation, engineering reports, safety violations, budget manipulation, email chains showing Vaughn overruling qualified experts to save money. It was devastating, and it was airtight. I spent the entire night reading through everything. Marcus hadn't just documented problems, documented a pattern. Meadowbrook wasn't the first project where Vaughn had cut corners, it was just the biggest. By sunrise, I had a timeline. 5 projects over 3 years, each one with similar issues, substandard materials, rushed inspections, falsified reports, and each time Marcus had tried to stop it, each time Vaughn had silenced him. I should have felt triumphant. I had everything I needed to destroy Vaughn's career, but instead I felt terrified. This wasn't just about exposing one bad decision. This was about revealing systematic fraud, the kind that could bring down the entire company. the kind that could put people in prison. And if I did this, there was no going back. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table as the sun came up. The USB drive sat next to my laptop. 2 copies now, mine and Marcus's, enough evidence to end everything. But who could I trust with this? Who had the power to actually do something? Then I remembered the homeowners, the families who'd put deposits on Meadowbrook. They had the most to lose, and they had the legal standing to demand answers. I spent the next week being the perfect employee. I smiled at Vaughn, nodded in meetings, kept my head down. Meanwhile, I was preparing. I created a comprehensive report, 32 pages detailing every violation, every altered document, every safety concern Marcus had raised. I included photos, budget reports, email evidence, and engineering analysis. I made it impossible to ignore and impossible to dismiss. Then I researched attorneys, not criminal lawyers, civil litigation specialists, the kind who represent homeowners against developers, the kind who work on contingency and love cases they can win. I found 3 firms that fit the profile. All had successful track records against construction companies. All were hungry for high-profile cases. I drafted an anonymous cover letter. I am a project coordinator at a mid-size construction firm. I have evidence of systematic building code violations, fraudulent inspections, and safety hazards affecting 42 residential properties currently under construction. Attached is comprehensive documentation. The homeowners deserve to know what they're buying. I printed everything at a FedEx store 3 towns over, paid cash, used a prepaid envelope with no return address. On Tuesday morning, before work, I mailed 3 identical packages to 3 different law firms. Then I went to the office and did my job, smiled at Vaughn in the hallway, laughed at his jokes in the break room. He had no idea the clock was already ticking. Nothing happened for 8 days, 8 agonizing days where I questioned everything. Had the lawyers ignored it, thrown it away, decided it wasn't worth their time? I went to work, I came home, I barely slept. Every phone call made me jump. Every email made my heart race. Then on day 9, everything changed. I was at my desk when Vaughn's assistant rushed past me, looking panicked. 10 minutes later, raised voices came from his office. Then silence, then more voices, multiple people this time. I casually walked past his office. Through the glass wall I could see 3 people in business suits, not clients, not contractors, lawyers. One of them was a woman I recognized from my research, Brenda Castellano, senior partner at Castellano and Associates, one of the firms I'd contacted, and she looked serious. The meeting lasted 2 hours. When they finally left, Vaughn looked like he'd aged 10 years. His face was pale, his tie was loosened. He closed his office door and didn't come out for the rest of the day. That evening my personal email pinged, a message from an account I didn't recognize. Your package was received. We're moving forward. Thank you for your courage. You may be contacted for additional information. Use this email address only. I read it 3 times, then I deleted it, cleared my trash, and closed my laptop. The wheels were in motion now. All I had to do was wait. The lawsuits hit 1 week later. Not 1, 3. Filed simultaneously by 3 different law firms representing 38 of the 42 Meadowbrook homeowners. The allegations were brutal: fraudulent misrepresentation, building code violations, negligence, breach of contract. They demanded forensic inspections, construction halts, and full refunds. The damages requested totaled over $8 million. Local news picked up the story within hours. Luxury development faces multiple lawsuits over safety concerns. Vaughn's photo was right there under the headline, his corporate headshot from our website, smiling like he didn't have a care in the world. The office erupted into chaos, phones ringing constantly, contractors calling, investors panicking. Our company lawyer arrived at 9 in the morning and didn't leave until midnight. Vaughn called an emergency staff meeting. He stood at the front of the conference room, jaw clenched, eyes dark. "This is a frivolous cash grab," he said. "Opportunistic lawyers manipulating scared homeowners. We've done nothing wrong. We will fight this." But his hands were shaking. Everyone could see it. "Where did they get their information?" someone asked. Vaughn's eyes swept the room, landing on each of us in turn. Suspicious, paranoid. That's what we're trying to figure out. When his gaze reached me, I didn't look away. I met his eyes calmly, steadily. Just another concerned employee, nothing more. He moved on, but I could feel it, the first crack in his armor. He was scared, and he should be. The inspections started 3 days later. city building officials, accompanied by independent structural engineers hired by the plaintiffs. They tore through Meadowbrook like surgeons looking for cancer. And they found it, all of it. The drainage system failed every test. Water pooled in demonstration trenches. Grading was insufficient. Materials were substandard. The violations weren't borderline, they were egregious. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what they found in the foundations. Concrete that hadn't been properly cured. Rebar spacing that didn't meet code. Footer depths that were 8 inches too shallow. The cost to fix everything, $4 million, maybe more, and that was assuming the homes could be fixed at all. Some of them might need to be torn down and rebuilt from scratch. The news had a field day. Construction nightmare, dream homes built on faulty foundations. Our company's name was everywhere. Our reputation was imploding in real time. Investors started pulling out. 2 major contracts were cancelled. Our bank called an emergency meeting to discuss our line of credit. And through it all, Vaughan kept insisting it was a witch hunt, a conspiracy. Someone was sabotaging him. He was right in a way, but it wasn't sabotage. It was justice finally being allowed to speak. I watched it all from my desk, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and guilt. I hadn't lied. I hadn't fabricated anything. I'd simply made sure the truth couldn't be hidden anymore. Vaughan became obsessed with finding his traitor. He hired a private investigator, started monitoring emails, questioned staff one by one in his office, fishing for information. When my turn came, I was ready. "Do you know anything about this?" he asked, sliding printouts of the lawsuit across his desk. I picked them up, scanned them like I was seeing them for the first time. "This is bad," I said, injecting genuine concern into my voice. I had no idea the inspections were falsified. "They weren't falsified," he snapped, then caught himself. "I mean, there may have been some miscommunication with contractors, but—" "Marcus tried to warn us," I said quietly like I'd just remembered, before he left, about the drainage. Vaughan's expression darkened. Marcus was a disgruntled employee. "Don't believe everything you hear." "I'm not believing anything," I said, meeting his eyes. "I'm just trying to understand what happened." He stared at me for a long moment, searching for cracks, for guilt, for anything that would confirm his suspicions. I gave him nothing, just confused loyalty, just an employee trying to make sense of chaos. Finally, he waved me away. "Get back to work. And if you hear anyone talking about this, anyone, you come directly to me. Understood?" Understood. I left his office with my heart pounding, but I'd passed the test. He suspected everyone, which meant he suspected no one in particular. I was still invisible, still safe. The legal fees started mounting fast. Vaughan had initially hired our regular corporate attorney, a local guy who handled contracts and basic business disputes, but this was beyond his capability. These weren't simple contract disagreements. These were fraud allegations with millions on the line. Vaughan brought in a defense firm from the city, big name, big retainer, $50,000 just to take the case, then hourly rates that could buy a car. I heard him on the phone in his office one afternoon, door closed but voice loud enough to carry. "I don't care what it costs, make this go away." But it wasn't going away. If anything, it was growing. The attorneys representing the homeowners had found more violations. HVAC systems installed incorrectly, electrical wiring that didn't meet code, windows that weren't properly weatherproofed. Every discovery triggered new legal motions. More depositions, more expert witnesses, more billable hours. Vaughan's Mercedes disappeared one day, replaced by his old pickup truck. He stopped going to lunch with the sales team, stopped bragging about anything. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slumped, suit rumpled. Part of me felt a flicker of pity, but then I'd remember that meeting in his office, the way he'd threatened me, the way he'd cut my salary without a second thought, the way he'd gambled with people's safety to line his own pockets. No, he'd made his choices, now he was living with them. 3 months in, settlement talks began. The homeowners' attorneys weren't interested in long court battles. They wanted their clients made whole, now. Their demands were clear: full refunds for all deposits, complete remediation of all code violations, compensation for temporary housing during repairs, and punitive damages for fraud. Total cost, $6 million, plus another $2 million in projected legal fees if the case went to trial. Vaughan didn't have $8 million. The company didn't have $8 million. Our insurance wouldn't cover fraud. Our assets barely covered our existing debts. He tried to negotiate, offered partial refunds, promised to fix the major issues, begged for payment plans. The attorneys rejected everything. They had all the leverage and they knew it. Either pay up or face trial, where the penalties could be even worse. I watched Vaughan make call after call, trying to find money that didn't exist, trying to convince investors who'd already fled, trying to sell equipment that no one wanted from a company with a destroyed reputation. One afternoon, I walked past his office and saw him sitting alone in the dark, head in his hands. For a moment, he looked like what he really was, a man who'd played a dangerous game and lost. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Saw the news, you okay? I typed back, getting better every day. The company started falling apart in slow motion. First, the subcontractors stopped showing up, they hadn't been paid in weeks. Then our office manager quit, then 2 project managers, then our receptionist. We went from 12 employees to 6. The office felt like a graveyard, empty desks, silent phones, the coffee machine sat unused. Vaughan tried to keep up appearances, still came in every morning in a suit and tie, still held meetings, even though half the seats were empty, still insisted we'd get through this. But we all knew the truth. The company was dying. It was just a matter of how long the death would take. I started quietly job hunting, updated my resume, reached out to contacts. I wasn't going to go down with this ship, not after everything. 3 firms reached out within a week. All of them had heard about Meadowbrook. All of them asked the same question: how involved were you in the decision-making? I was project coordinator, I explained. I implemented plans, I didn't create them. I actually tried to flag the drainage issues early on, but I was overruled. One firm asked me to come in for an interview. Brennan Construction, a competitor of Vaughan's but with a sterling reputation. They built things right, not fast, quality over quantity. The interview went well, really well. The owner, Mr. Brennan, looked at my work history and nodded appreciatively. The Riverside shopping complex, that was excellent work. Heard it came in early and under budget. Thank you. How would you feel about joining a company that values that kind of excellence? I smiled. For the first time in months, it was genuine. I'd like that very much. I gave Vaughan my 2 weeks' notice on a Friday afternoon. He barely looked up from his desk. Jumping ship. I got an offer I couldn't refuse, I said. He laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Of course you did. Everyone's leaving, like rats off the Titanic. I wanted to say something, wanted to tell him this was all his fault, that he'd built this disaster brick by brick, but I stayed silent. What was the point? He'd never accept responsibility. Men like Vaughan never did. Good luck, I said instead. He didn't respond, just turned back to his computer, shoulders hunched, defeated. I walked out of his office and back to my desk, started packing my things into a cardboard box. Photos, coffee mug, my nameplate. 3 years of my life reduced to one small box. My co-workers, the few who remained, stopped by to say goodbye. Good for you, they whispered. Get out while you can. None of them knew what I'd done. None of them would ever know. That secret would stay buried with me. That evening, I drove past the Meadowbrook site one last time. Construction equipment sat abandoned. Unfinished homes stood like skeletons against the sunset. Yellow caution tape fluttered in the wind. It looked like what it was, a monument to greed and carelessness, a warning. I drove away and didn't look back. My first day at Brennan Construction felt like stepping into a different world. Clean offices, happy employees, a boss who asked questions and actually listened to answers. During my onboarding, Mr. Brennan pulled me aside. I heard what happened at your last company. Terrible situation, but I want you to know we don't operate that way here. Safety first, quality first, always. That's good to hear, I said. If you ever see something that concerns you, my door is open. No retaliation, no pressure, just honesty. He shook my hand. We build things that last. That's the only legacy worth having. I believed him, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Meanwhile, Vaughan's company continued to implode. The settlement talks collapsed when it became clear he couldn't pay. The case moved to trial. Discovery revealed everything: the altered documents, the falsified inspections, the systematic corner-cutting. Marcus was called as an expert witness. He testified about the warnings he'd given, the reports Vaughan had buried. The jury heard it all. The local news covered the trial extensively. Each day brought new revelations, new humiliations for Vaughan. His lawyer did his best, but you can't defend the indefensible. I watched some of the coverage from home. Saw Vaughn on the courthouse steps, surrounded by cameras, refusing to comment. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just a quiet sense of completion. The truth had finally caught up to him. That's all I'd ever wanted. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They found in favor of the homeowners on every count: fraud, negligence, breach of contract, violation of building codes. The damages awarded totaled $7.2 million. Vaughn's company declared bankruptcy 3 days later. There was no other option. He'd lost everything: the business, his reputation, his savings. The court appointed a trustee to liquidate assets and distribute whatever money could be recovered to the plaintiffs. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. The homeowners would get pennies on the dollar, but at least they'd gotten justice. At least the truth was public record now. The State Contractors Board opened their own investigation into Vaughn's business practices. Other former clients started coming forward with complaints, projects from years ago that had similar issues. The scope of his misconduct was staggering. Criminal charges were being considered: fraud, falsifying official documents, endangering public safety. If convicted, Vaughn could face actual prison time. I followed the news from a distance, like watching a storm from inside a warm house. It was happening, but it wasn't touching me anymore. I was safe. I'd moved on. At my new job, I was thriving. Real projects with real standards. A team that collaborated instead of competed. A boss who valued expertise over ego. One evening, Mr. Brennan complimented my work on a drainage system design. "This is excellent, thorough, code-compliant, well-documented. This is how it should be done." I smiled. I learned what happens when you don't do it right. He nodded, understanding more than I'd said. "Well, we're lucky to have you." 6 months after I left, Vaughn's company officially dissolved. The office was emptied, equipment sold at auction, files archived. The Meadowbrook site was taken over by a remediation firm hired by the bankruptcy trustee. They tore down 4 of the homes completely, 2 damaged to salvage. The other 38 underwent extensive repairs, new foundations, new drainage, new everything. It took a year and cost more than building them fresh would have. But they did it right this time. Proper materials, proper inspections, no shortcuts. I drove past the site once during the reconstruction, saw workers actually digging trenches to the correct depth, installing proper drainage systems, doing the job the way it should have been done from the start. If Vaughn had just done it right the first time, he'd still have his company, still have his reputation, still have his life. Instead, he had legal bills he'd never finish paying, and a name that was synonymous with fraud in the local construction industry. He'd saved $24,000 and lost millions. The math was beautiful in its simplicity. I heard through the grapevine that he'd taken a job at a hardware store. Retail sales, minimum wage, from company owner to hourly employee. The fall was complete. I didn't celebrate, didn't gloat, didn't tell anyone what I'd done. That wasn't the point. The point was that justice had been served, not by revenge, but by truth finally being allowed to speak. A year after I left, I got an unexpected email from Brenda Castellano, the attorney who'd represented the Meadowbrook homeowners. "I wanted to reach out and thank you," it said. "Your documentation was instrumental in securing justice for our clients. While I know you prefer to remain anonymous, please know that your courage made a real difference. Many families now have safe homes because you spoke up." I read the email 3 times, then I saved it in a folder I titled Reminders. Because sometimes, when doubt crept in, when I wondered if I'd done the right thing, if I'd gone too far, if I'd destroyed lives needlessly, I needed to remember that. I hadn't destroyed anything. Vaughn had built his own destruction, brick by brick, shortcut by shortcut. I just made sure it couldn't stay hidden. There's a difference between revenge and accountability. Revenge is about making someone suffer. Accountability is about making sure the truth has consequences. I'd chosen accountability, and I'd do it again. At work, I'd become a senior project coordinator. More responsibility, better pay, genuine respect. Mr. Brennan had promoted me after 6 months, saying I'd proven myself invaluable. My salary was now 30% higher than what Vaughn had originally paid me, not because I'd demanded it, because I'd earned it. That felt better than any revenge ever could. 2 years later, I was drinking coffee at a job site when I saw him. Vaughn, he was delivering lumber for one of our subcontractors, dressed in a company polo, driving a delivery truck, clipboard in hand. He didn't recognize me at first. I'd grown a beard, changed my style. but then our eyes met and I saw the recognition dawn. His face went pale. He looked away quickly, focused on his clipboard like it was the most important document in the world. I could have walked away, should have, probably, but something made me approach him. "Hey," I said. He looked up wary. "Hey." Silence stretched between us, 2 years of history unspoken. "You doing okay?" I asked. I genuinely wanted to know. He laughed, that same bitter sound I remembered. "What do you think?" "I think you're working, that's something." "Yeah," he looked at the lumber in his truck. "It's humbling, delivering supplies to companies I used to compete with, but it's honest work. More honest than," he trailed off. "Than before," I finished. He met my eyes. "You knew, didn't you? About Meadowbrook, you tried to tell me." "I did. And I didn't listen." He rubbed his face. "I thought I was being smart, efficient, maximizing profit, but I was just being greedy." It was the first time I'd ever heard him accept responsibility. It didn't fix anything, but it meant something. "I hope things get better for you," I said, and I meant it. He nodded. "Yes, you too." I walked away feeling lighter somehow. Closure is a strange thing. That encounter stayed with me for weeks. I'd spent so long focused on justice, on accountability, on making sure Vaughn faced consequences, but I'd never really thought about what came after. He'd lost everything: business, reputation, wealth. He was rebuilding from zero. And while part of me still believed he deserved it, another part recognized the humanity in that struggle. I talked to Marcus about it over coffee one afternoon. He'd become a good friend over the years. "You feel guilty," he said, "not a question, an observation." "A little," I admitted. "Don't," Marcus leaned back in his chair. "You didn't make him cut corners. You didn't make him threaten us. You didn't make him commit fraud. You just refused to let it stay hidden. There's no guilt in that." "I know, but I still—" "You changed people's lives," Marcus interrupted. 38 families have safe homes because of you. Dozens of future projects are being built correctly because contractors now know there are consequences. You didn't destroy one man's career. You protected countless people from his negligence. He was right. I knew he was right. But accepting it emotionally was harder than knowing it intellectually. "Besides," Marcus added with a slight smile, "if Vaughn had just listened to us in the first place, none of this would have happened. He created his own disaster. You just refused to be buried in it." That perspective helped. I'd protected myself and others. That wasn't wrong. That was survival. 5 years later, I'm a project manager at Brennan Construction. I oversee major commercial developments, the kind Vaughn used to dream about, but we build them right, every time, no exceptions. Meadowbrook Estates is finished now. All 42 homes rebuilt properly, sold, occupied. Families living there, kids playing in backyards that drain properly when it rains. Normal life built on a foundation that won't fail. I drove through the neighborhood last month. Saw children on bicycles, parents gardening, a community that had no idea how close they'd come to disaster. That anonymity felt right. They didn't need to know my story. They just needed to be safe. Sometimes I think about that moment in Vaughn's office, the contract on his desk, my salary slashed, his indifferent shrug. That was the moment everything changed, not because of what he did to me, but because of what he revealed about himself. He'd shown me that he valued profit over people, convenience over safety, his comfort over everyone else's security, and once I saw that clearly, I couldn't unsee it. I didn't set out to destroy him. I set out to protect people, the families who trusted him, the workers who depended on safe job sites, the future clients who deserved honesty. The destruction was just a side effect of the truth finally having a voice. My mother asked me once if I regretted it. "You lost friends," she said. "The company collapsed, people lost jobs." "The company was built on fraud," I told her. "Those jobs were never secure. I just exposed what was already broken." She thought about that, then nodded. "You did the right thing." I believe that. Most days I believe that completely. Some days I still wonder. But then I remember those children on bicycles, playing in yards that won't flood. I remember the projects we're building now, strong, safe, honest. Vaughn taught me something valuable, even if he didn't mean to. He taught me that silence is complicity, that looking away doesn't make you innocent, it makes you part of the problem. I keep Marcus's files backed up in 3 places, not because I think I'll need them again, but because they're a reminder that documentation matters, that truth matters, that standing up even when it's terrifying matters. Last week, a junior coordinator at Brennan came to my office, nervous, clutching a folder. "I think I found something wrong on the Riverside Extension project," he said quietly. "The concrete mix ratios don't match the spec sheets." I looked at him, this kid fresh out of college, scared of making waves, scared of being wrong. I saw myself 5 years ago. "Show me everything," I said. He did, and he was right. A supplier had substituted cheaper materials without authorization. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to matter. Enough to compromise structural integrity over time. We reported it immediately. Mr. Brennan praised the kid, fixed the problem, and terminated the supplier's contract. No cover-up, no shortcuts, no threats. That's the difference between working for Vaughan and working for someone with integrity. One punishes you for caring, the other rewards you for it. The young coordinator thanked me afterward. "I was afraid you'd think I was overreacting," he admitted. "Never apologize for doing the right thing," I told him. "The wrong people will always make you feel like you're the problem, but you're not. Keep speaking up." He nodded, relieved, and I realized something. My story wasn't just about revenge or justice. It was about breaking a cycle, about making sure the next person doesn't have to face what I faced, about building a culture where safety and honesty aren't punished, they're expected. Vaughan lowered my salary to pad his profit margins. He thought he was being clever, efficient, but all he did was show me exactly who he was. And once I saw that, I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't enable it. I couldn't let others suffer for it. So I made sure the truth came out. Not through violence, not through lies, just through evidence, documentation, and accountability. In the end, it cost him everything: his business, his reputation, his comfortable life, all because he chose greed over integrity, all because he thought he could hide behind power and silence. I chose differently. I chose truth. I chose to protect people he was willing to endanger. And 5 years later, I sleep just fine at night. Some people call it revenge. I call it making sure the right thing finally happened. Maybe they're the same thing. Maybe they're not. All I know is this: I'd do it again. Because silence protects the wrong people, and I refuse to be silent anymore. So here's my question for you. If you discovered your boss was endangering others to save money, would you risk everything to expose the truth? Or would you stay quiet to protect your paycheck? When doing the right thing costs you everything, is it still the right choice? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know what you would do.